Jessica, how many University of Miami games have you gone to with Mike Ryan?
I think 2, maybe. He didn't go to the last 2. I don't know why. His basketball teams are so good this season. He just abandoned them.
And what has it been like when you've been with him at those games? There's a reason I'm asking these questions.
He wears a full Adidas Miami Hurricanes tracksuit. He sort of like walks in with a swagger. He shakes everyone's hands in the club section. He's got great parking, great seats. I sat on the court side for the women's basketball game.
Touching wood.
Like 3 seats down from Breanna Stewart.
Now, I'm curious, is his hair slicked back or pushed back?
Never back. I got the entradas. I'm not showing the world that.
Yeah, I mean, you should know better than that.
I don't know. I thought you'd be slicked back real good.
But
Dumb question.
The Adidas jumpsuit thing, is it Tony Sperano-ish? Is it Bob Huggins-ish? What is he going
Davis,
for,
right?
like, in terms of just throwing on gear that represents I'm Miami through and through, and also I'm a dad?
Tony Soprano-like, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. That's an easy mistake for me to make.
He's the old Dolphins coach, Jess.
I didn't know if you meant to say Sperano.
It
or you
works
meant
for
to say
both.
Soprano.
Oddly, it works for both. But
He's no longer with us.
I did mean to say Tony Soprano.
Okay.
So,
well, it's that one. Because he's a little Italian.
The reason I bring it all up is because I don't know if you guys know, as Mike has told you, and Mike's, been publicly critical of their athletic director. So when you're in this company, it can be a little awkward. But while all of this is going on, where Mike is in a group of people that have heard him say some things that can be critical of the University of Miami, he was stunned and surprised to get a hello from Zagacki.
I got a text message about it.
Well, because Jess has been with me while I have to awkwardly shuffle past Josie.
Yeah, Mike's tickets, so you have to get from like the club section to where his tickets are behind the visitor bench. You have to go in between the row of the like stat keepers and the the TV and the radio people, and you got to kind of like excuse me, squeezing right past you there because it's a very narrow section. So you kind of bump everyone a little bit, and so Zagacki sits right there
every damn time.
And Mike's walking through in his tracksuit, and like Mike's a big guy. Like Zagacki sees him coming, and it's very awkward for Mike.
But there's never interaction though. There's never Mike knows. No. Mike has felt the ice off of him. He's pulled up next to Zagacki in a tailgate. He's felt the ice off of Zagacki, who will not talk to him. But you got a hello this time.
I got a hey Mike. Or at least I'm 90% sure I heard a hey Mike. I was so shell-shocked by it because I was in a room in which there was some tensions in the room, so he wasn't my focus for the first time. The awkward interaction that I was focusing on wasn't with Josie, and he undercut it. He was right next to me, and he said, hey, Mike. I said, hey, back, and that was that.
You said, hello.
I said, hello. No, I don't. That was the extent of it, but advantage Josie because he totally disarmed me.
And now you guys are going to go get chicken spaghetti at Ciccolini's together.
That's not how you say that.
I don't get the reference. But, I think Josie... So, I happen to know. Josie, not a fan of mine.
How do you happen to know it?
Well, when I happen to know something, Dan, as we have established, it's certifiable. Because it's my understanding that he's told people. This is why my interactions with him are uncomfortable, and I understand it, too.
Roy, why do you have a giant smile on your face?
There had to have been another mic around.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat from the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We can't go on, man, forget my peace. You take the west side, take on the east. I'ma put him in a cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough, but mans keep walking, yeah. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome, yeah. Hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch me, please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. stop that.
Amin stopped us all dead in our tracks with a reference from "I Think You Should Leave," and the thing that I think of about when I think of the show "I Think You Should Leave" is my brother's widow. One time I was telling her about that show and that she should see it at a crowded place and that her and my brother would like it. But when she heard me say, "I think you should leave," she thought I was telling her in a loud place that I thought she should leave. And so I have an awkward moment with that show. In terms of sketch comedy, that's the best we've had recently in terms of a breakout sketch comedy thing, correct? Because they've gotten other opportunities because of how popular I Think You Should Leave was, and I don't think it was a cult hit. There's so many things that you can choose from these days. The idea that stood out and that a sketch show, what was the Showtime sketch show, Zoe? There was a Showtime sketch show. Showtime didn't do this well with Desus and Mero. That disappeared.
Well, that wasn't a sketch show. That was more of a late night talk show.
Well, they started it as they were doing sketch stuff, which surprised me because it's hard to do sketch stuff, and the expectation of funny changes the dynamic on that sort of thing. I didn't think they should be doing sketch stuff.
There's a different sketch show that was very, very funny, very well done, but did not break through. It was Michael Che. He had a sketch show on Max. It was streaming only. It never aired on HBO. It was streaming only. It was really well done, really funny, and especially because it was outside of the environment of SNL, it was one of the things that made me say, holy crap, this as a construct is letting him down because he's incredibly funny, and these sketches are really very well written. Most of them were hits. And the show never really did well and made any noise. I don't know if that's a marketing thing or what that was about. But, yes, you're right. Tim Robinson, I think he's about to have a moment. Jeremy, he's in a movie, right, that's coming out soon.
Friends, right?
With Paul Rudd, right?
With Paul Rudd. It's kind of like I Love You, Man. It's for the trailer. It feels
Great
like I
flick.
Love You, Man, but with Tim Robinson.
Well, Tim Robinson doing the maximum awkward thing.
Yeah.
There's nobody really occupying that particular lane. And when you say having a moment, no, I mean – he is now a star, correct? Because funny.
I think we haven't quite hit that crest yet. I think we know because we're nerds, but like he's gonna have that moment where like everybody's gonna know who Tim Robinson is in a way that right now people don't.
I think it is a little bit of a cult favorite, and we're just all part of the cult. I'm deeply, deeply sorry for not getting the reference in the Shadow Show. That
happens.
I feel really terrible about it. I think Detroiters, his other show with Sam Richardson, one of the most underrated comedies of the last, I don't know, decade. It's so funny. I laugh at the episode where it's Mr. Duvet's birthday and the clown is there. Is the greatest television I've ever seen in my life.
Who else is occupying right now this lane of just making things maximum awkward? Because that takes a different kind of bravery. And as comedians complain all the time these days about comedy being harder to do because of how sensitive we are, is there anyone else bravely occupying the lane of, I'm just going to go and I'm going to make you laugh by just making things so uncomfortably awkward and silly that I'm going to consistently get you with the awkwardness.
Were you talking about Z-Way?
Yes.
Yeah,
I called it. That's a fine. I called her Zoe. Yeah. Z-Way is what. That show had some funny stuff in it. That show got canceled too soon, like a lot of them are these days.
Yeah, she had really funny interviews that would go viral on that.
Also
show.
awkward though. She would do that on purpose. She was going purposely awkward.
There's a lot more of that on like TikTok, honestly, with a lot of people who are purposefully making you feel uncomfortable, whether it's going and approaching people as a purposefully bad singer and asking them to sit through songs that you're singing, or pretending to act as a certain type of protagonist in a movie but in real life, and just making people feel uncomfortable with what they're watching. But because it's all edited together and it's not live or in an interview setting, it allows for TikTok creators to do that a little more.
Eric Andre is another person.
It's a great example.
A great job.
New
of that.
season of Righteous Gemstones coming out in 2 weeks.
Can't wait.
I have on my phone, and I will just check in every once in a while with him in Righteous Gemstones doing an imaginary lasso during a congregation preaching he was doing and pulling someone out of their physical seat because of how well he does awkward almost everywhere that he appears. Speaking of awkward, the big story from the scouting combine, which had a whole bunch of NFL news yesterday. We did not get to all of it, but there was a ton of NFL news.
Big wheel.
At Starbucks in Indianapolis, conflicting reports about Brady and Stafford meeting led to Jordan Schultz, an information insider from Fox,
Friend of the show.
verbally accosting Ian Rappaport at a Starbucks in Indianapolis.
Do you know what the funniest thing about that story is? Right there, end the sentence there.
I do.
Does
Well,
anyone else know?
No.
Hold
Well,
on.
yes, I do know, and I think people in our group know, because it did make me laugh out loud when I got to the 6th paragraph of the story. I was not sure that this detail was true, and I was surprised by it.
Oh, it is absolutely true. Before I reveal it to the audience, do you guys know what's funny about that sentence? Everyone's
Yes.
nodding their head. Chris, do you know?
That they were in line and that they didn't order on the app and pick it up.
He does the show very well.
Yeah.
Jordan Schultz is the son of Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks.
Do you think that he's got to pay for Starbucks?
Absolutely not.
What?
You don't think he's got a lifetime Starbucks
No,
card?
I didn't
Chris
know
is-
that was his son. I just thought Schultz was a common last name. He does work hard, Jordan. So it's not surprising that he's found great success in this life.
No, that's incredible, isn't it?
That he would be in a Starbucks and that they would get into a fight. There are a number of things about this that are funny. I also want to review with you guys and get a formal definition for how it is that you define accosting, because I will tell you that Sal Palantonio in New Orleans came up to me also in a Starbucks, and it felt like an accosting to me, just because it was early and I didn't particularly want to talk to anybody, but I don't know what accosting, like what that means exactly. Like if I'm accusing you of accosting, what happened? They're just shouting at each other in a Starbucks? What is accosting?
I would think it's I got Bob Costas. Like I got it. Whatever that is, I got it.
In a past tense?
I got Costas.
I was gonna say it's what you do to us in the morning show every single morning in our meeting.
See, accosting can feel good. It can feel like camaraderie, but to others it can feel like accosting.
Now,
Which actually does fit Bob Costas.
what was the context of what Sal Palantonio did to you?
Well, no. Again, this Sal Palantonio just came up and said hello. I had not talked to him in a long time,
Dan was like, "Ah."
but
He does not like you.
I didn't think he did, and I've said some things on the air that are funny about him. We've made some fun of him. We've also pointed out the teeth, which is something that we do to some of the people at ESPN, Mike most specifically. But that stuff all gets attached to me when your teeth seem to be veneers or not real. But he came up to me, and I didn't have any. I haven't had much of a relationship with him, and haven't talked to him in a long time. And he just started talking to me about how long he had been at ESPN, one of the longest tenured employees, 33 years, still doing it. And it felt like an accosting, but he was just being nice.
The most amazing thing about that story, it wasn't outside the Eagles Stadium. I thought Sal was fixed there.
Oh, dude, like he in front of that team facility that looks like it's in the Mushroom Kingdom.
Does he sign off his IRL conversations with ES?
Jeremy Schaap
PM.
does. He has been great for a long time for ESPN. How many people does ESPN have that have been there longer than Sal Palantonio? Like it cannot, at this point, it cannot be.
Hannah Storm, I feel like, has been there for a long
No.
time.
Linda
No?
Cohn.
She wasn't
Linda
in
Cohn.
NBC, but I know.
Linda Cohn's
yes.
still doing
Yeah,
it.
Linda Cohn.
Okay.
Hannah Storm was at NBC and got to ESPN, I think not long either before or after I got to ESPN. Sal Pal.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I just blended her pre-ESPN days and other ESPN days.
Because you knew who she was. It was quite a. It's one of the rare huge free agency gets for ESPN in terms of news anchors. Usually they're homegrown, right? Or they get them from local TV and they grow into this role. Hannah Storm was like a massive deal way before ESPN, and then she ended up at ESPN, which was
Chris Berman's got to be up there.
Well,
he
but
still
I
there?
feel like he's more ambassador or he's got tenure.
He still does the
The internet tells you.
every Monday.
Google says it is Linda Cohn. That she's been there since '92.
Longest full time.
Over 5,000.
But that's
sports
because
centers.
they're not counting Berman, correct?
Correct.
Because Berman is now part-time or
That's right.
ambassador.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a man.
Dickie V.
Oh yeah, Dickie V is another one.
Hannah Storm, has she had a total of 33 years? She wouldn't have had a total of 33 years at the network.
No, not at ESPN.
Is the network anchor or the star anchor, is that dead? I'm not even talking about sports. I'm just talking about.
So people cared about the Lester Holt news.
Lester Holt is what classifies as like what used to be Brian Jennings and Dan Rather and Tom Brokaw and
Peter Jennings, not Brian Jennings.
Sorry, thank you, Brian Williams.
That's a fine.
Another fine. Damn it.
Yeah. What are you doing? Is this like SNL isn't good anymore when it comes to anchors?
I'm asking the question. Look, obviously the nightly news isn't what it used to be. That goes without saying. Obviously, there's no one credible source that you go to that is the established standard for American news now that we've politicized it all. But even beyond that, when he said star free agent anchor, I thought to myself, is that even a thing anymore in sports? Like, can that even exist? Like, obviously, Scott Van Pelt is that thing, but a star free agent anchor.
Matt Lauer's a free agent.
the wronged Matt Lauer, the terribly wronged victim Matt Lauer, according to Bain.
Charlie Rose, too.
It's weird. I think that cable news evening host, because they're not really anchors, those are more opinion shows, they are more famous, more talked about than the network anchor, which used to be the destination.
Used to be the destination. Now, kind of what Dan would call a traffic cop, right? And inherently replaceable.
Like Hannity is more famous than Lester Holt.
Yes, absolutely, for all the wrong reasons. But Lester Holt is up there, I would say.
David Muir, too.
David Muir is another one, yeah.
Zaddy.
What's
Anderson Cooper.
We've cheapened it though, and in sports right now there isn't somebody that would play the role of traditional anchor that would move to places like Tirico's the last one.
Van Pelt would be the one.
But I'm saying he wouldn't or hasn't done it. Van Pelt would be somebody, but that's not a thing that's going to happen anymore. Is the idea of that dead? The star I need to get that television person who's associated with just news giving, not opinion, not this is the political perspective of this person or attitude or charisma or personality. This is a news giver, and I trust this person as a credible source. That's dead, right?
Joy Reid. Just kidding.
I mean, Rachel Maddow, right? She's an
terrible.
example. Oh, yeah, true.
Thanks,
Ben.
I think that it's a weirder conversation that Dan is trying to play, because I think for news there are names and there are places, but for sports, I'm with you. I don't know if there are any names out there who aren't already established at ESPN.
He is SVP though,
but he's at ESPN. Like, who would if ESPN wanted to do a Hannah Storm like deal? We're going to go out and get a big name, because SVP was on the Golf Network before.
It's got to be like it's going to be a Barkley, but as an information person.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is the objective one, someone who does. Scott Van Pelt, whatever his politics are, I don't believe anybody would know them. Like, he is there to give the information, to host a show, and he's got a personality, but it's you will not see on SportsCenter an assortment of strong personalities that are going to, or strong opinions that are going to be polarizing. Like, that's not something that, that's not something that, that's the domain. The people getting paid there are the Barkleys, the Stephen A. Smiths, the people who have very strong polarizing opinions.
Right. I'm going to ask you to stop saying we don't know what his politics are, because, again, we're talking about sports anchors, and there are plenty of people who are opinionated who would not fit the mold that you're talking about, that we don't know their politics either. I know what you're trying to say. I'm just saying, for the purpose of this conversation, it makes it a lot clearer if we're saying, hey, who's the person who's not an opinion person out there, so not a Barkley, not a Stephen A. Smith, whatever, who is a news person, objective, who can come over to ESPN as a big hire. That I don't know who that person is.
Ernie Johnson?
Noah Eagle.
But, okay, so Noah, yes.
Ernie's actually a good one. I was kind of being funny.
But Noah is a play-by-play guy. So, and Tirico, even, who obviously started at ESPN as well, he's a play-by-play guy.
Ernie's a great
Ernie
one.
would be the name, because Ernie hosts a studio show, and he plays it down the middle, and it's strictly the facts. Ernie would be the guy, and technically he'll be at ESPN next year.
Ernie might be. I love Scott Van Pelt. Ernie might be number one on this list.
Oh, I mean,
and just in terms of, like, people would be like, oh, that's a great hire.
I mean, how many Emmys do you want to throw on the table, right? Like, yeah, you think so?
But you guys have seen the change in how it is we consume all of this stuff so that we go to people we like. For example, maybe you check in with The View. And Whoopi Goldberg is somebody that you like to check in with because it's not news, it's a personality. And Diana Taurasi is appearing on her show after retiring. And then this is how it ends up going with Whoopi.
And delighting fans of the Phoenix Mercury, Diana Taurasi is announced.
Taurasi.
Thanks.
Taurasi.
Why don't you do it?
No, I don't want to do it. Well, she announced yesterday.
Yeah.
Do you want to make it a
So go ahead.
that she is retiring or hanging up her jersey and retiring, and we get to see her now. So please give a warm welcome to Diana Taurasi.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Whippy. Whoopi.
That's the same.
Mwah.
Got her.
That was well done. Can we just check back in with Whoopi, though, so that you could look at her face, and she is seething the entire time. She's mortified. She cringes. Just watch her face at how mortified she is the entire time.
The Phoenix Mercury, Diana Taurasi is announced.
Taurasi.
Oh.
Taurasi.
Thanks.
Oh, that thanks.
Why don't you do it?
No, I don't want to do it. Well, she announced yesterday.
Yeah.
Do you want to make it a
So go ahead.
She goes, yeah, I
that
know.
she is retiring or hanging up her jersey and retiring, and we get to see her now. So please give a warm welcome to Diana Taurasi.
Oh, yes. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Whippy. Whoopi.
That's the same.
I'm telling you, people don't know how cruel she is. Dark, dark inside.
If that happened on
cruel.
this show, Chris would be doing this the whole time.
Taurasi, man, like that's what we were talking about yesterday. That's exactly. That's a perfect encapsulation of a kind asshole. Is that what you called her yesterday?
I think that's what she calls herself.
A castle.
Confirmed by her friend. Casserole.
Casserole.
I just love you hear Whoopi, like the little panic when she doesn't know the name pronunciation. I've been there before. I did it yesterday with oogling and ogling.
Well, the difference
you
is
stop. You just a little hiccup because you're like, is it Teresi?
the difference is you weren't reading off a prompter.
That's right.
And she is. And if you're if you're writing the scripts on a prompter, they always tell you who gives a shit how the name is actually spelled. Type it the way it's supposed to be pronounced.
Yeah,
so you go
phonetically.
TOAR in caps dash
ASSY.
Phonetically.
Yes, you type it like that, and that way, even if she mispronounced it as Taurasi, that's still closer than.
Give me an
Taurasi.
AH, then an SEE.
There you go. Yeah, Taurasi. Yeah.
But yeah, I think to Amin's point, it is perfect because it's like, she's not trying to intentionally humiliate Whoopi Goldberg. She's just trying to poke fun at it, and she's not taking herself so seriously where
Yes.
she's like, how dare you not know how to say my last name?
Yes, exactly.
I don't know if the rest of you remember Gene Hackman being on this show, Transition. But Gene Hackman has passed away at the age of 95. And the last couple of times I had seen him, he was being photographed by paparazzi, and he was aging, in a way that physically made him hard to recognize. He no longer looked like the person anymore that he used to be because he was 95 years old. Some of the details, he died. He and his wife were found
And dog.
dead, right? And they're not suspecting foul play, but that seems like a together pact, right?
No,
It's like there
it could be carbon monoxide poisoning. That if they don't suspect foul play, that's usually where the mind goes.
But foul play is others. I had assumed, and I don't know what happened here, obviously.
The dog too? The dog put his hand in the pile, like, yeah, all right, let's do this.
Well, I think they probably make the decision for the dog. If, like, I just assumed when they were found dead together, I thought that was a choice made by them. I mean, that's where my mind went initially, but that might be irresponsible of me. Regardless,
Yeah, because I don't think you know enough about carbon monoxide poisoning.
well, if it is carbon monoxide poisoning, then of course that would explain it. But if it's not carbon
What kind of
monoxide,
darkness you got living inside you, pal?
He thought Nosferatu was a love story, so I think we know.
It was Lust one.
can you play for me the sound of Gene Hackman? 7 o'clock in the morning is too early to watch that
Bram
movie.
Stoker's Dracula. That's a love story. And Nosferatu, that dick wins.
Can you play anything that we have from Gene Hackman's appearance on our show?
There's lots and lots of actors that I really admire. Pacino, De Niro, Tom Hanks. Oh, I don't know, just a whole gaggle of guys.
That's it? Oh, you got to laugh.
Very funny.
I also have a 2-minute clip of you saying you could whoop his ass and the show fighting you on it. I don't know if we want to play that to celebrate him.
Dan, you said that about Gene Hackman?
I don't have the context for this, but we've got to empty the file.
I think he was in his 70s at this point.
88 he was at this point.
Yesterday we felt old around here when the I See Dead People kid was a guest on our show, and we learned he's 30 from the Sixth Sense movies. Like what? I've told you before, Gene Hackman and Clint Eastwood being 88 is totally disorienting to me. They're such a different kind of 88 too, right? Like, you guys don't think that I would lose a fight against Gene Hackman, but you do think I'd lose one to Clint Eastwood.
Oh, he would crush you. I think you'd lose to Hackman, too. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah. God. That was quite the assumption.
Hackman would crush you, man.
That was quite the assumption by you.
Come on, man. Come on. Even if you think my fighting skills are those of Paul Giamatti, I still got to put it on the poll. Who's winning a fight, Gene Hackman or Paul Giamatti? 88-year-old Gene Hackman or 51-year-old Paul Giamatti?
I think Hackman's got him, yeah.
That doesn't mean I can't fight. Now, my fighting game has been, I haven't used it in about 19 years.
I mean, have you ever seen Every Which Way But Loose? Man, he would kick your tail.
I mean, if he brought the orangutan, if he brought was that a chimp? I don't know whether it's an orangutan or a chimp.
He would just throw a handful of gluten in your eye, and you'd be like, "Ah!"
That's cheating. You can't throw things at me.
Oh, Gene Hackman doesn't play fair.
No, he does not.
Come on, guys. Guys, what do you mean I can't win a fight?
You do not want to cross Gene Hackman. I'm
You
telling
don't.
you right now.
Look at his face, man. It's such an angry face. Seriously, he would take you out to the woodshed.
What is that phrase?
I don't know.
It's certainly not a 2018 phrase.
Is it a 1918 phrase? Because I think it might be a 1918 phrase.
I'm on it.
Was wood not like plentiful before that you had to store it in case someone else came and took all the wood?
I don't.
No, the shed was made of wood.
Yeah. No, I think that the shed held the wood.
Well, that's a good question. Now we're playing a game. Now we're cooking with gas.
Because you just say a shed. A wood shed stores wood.
Why are we spanking people out at the woodshed? Why are we hitting them with the wood?
So as not to disrupt what's going on inside. I mean,
Right.
manners.
You got to go away from the action where everyone is when you want to take someone out to the woodshed, when you want to discipline someone. You can't do it in public. You got to go somewhere private to do it, and the woodshed is private.
I'm with the confusion, though. I don't know if it's a shed made of wood or a shed holding wood. Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Taking someone out to the woodshed, is it a shed made of wood or is it a shed where the wood is kept?
Both.
Several notes. Number one, we didn't need the last 30 seconds. We were doing a Gene Hackman clip. The rest
Woodshed, that's good show
It was
banter.
good
Yeah,
show
man, that's
banter,
classic
but it's
show.
Classic show, man.
Number two, Gene Hackman was in the Marines. I don't know if any of you guys do that then or now.
But he was 88.
Number three.
And in the Navy.
And to Mike's point
Crimson Tide.
Mike's point about throwing gluten in your eyes, that's cheating, right? This is a Gene Hackman quote about acting and being successful at acting. He said, "It was more psychological warfare because I wasn't going to let those effers get me down. I insisted with myself I would continue to do whatever it took to get a job. It was like me against them, and in some ways, unfortunately, I still feel that way. It's a narcotic in the way that you are trained to do this work, and nobody will let you do it, so you're a little bit nuts. You lie to people. You cheat. You do whatever it takes to get an audition to get a job." Ladies and gentlemen, that is the words of someone who absolutely throw gluten in your eyes and then kick your ass.
Doesn't play fair.
I remember from that interview him saying that he didn't watch any of his movies ever because he was so self-conscious about how he looked and was so self-conscious about his acting that he would not want to watch all the things that he had done wrong.
Well, he missed some bangers. I mean, Crimson Tide is one of the greatest movies ever made.
I would have thought you went with The Replacements. I looked at you, Mike, and said, Mike's
I'm
a
not a
replacement.
replacements
No.
guy.
I
I love the cast, but I'm not a
Overrated.
replacements guy. I think it's overrated.
I agree.
Roy, Superman?
Yes, he was a good Lex Luthor. Yeah,
He wasn't
Wait,
bald.
can we talk about Roy in that clip saying he would kick your tail?
We were at ESPN at the time. So.
But why'd you go with tail and not butt?
Tail's funnier.
Tail's funnier.
kick your tail.
The private show that I got during that woodshed clip was rat-a-tat-tat. In one ear, I heard Chris Cody say, "Listen to Stugotz in his prime," and then the other ear, because he said he was so quick, and in the other ear, Mike Ryan said of Stugotz, "How does your laugh lose a step?" Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Can a laugh lose a step? Yes or no? Mike Ryan mentioned Crimson Tide. What else do you have there from the Gene Hackman? I mean, you could go.
Run
You could go back
70s.
Yes, I mean he had. That's a Hall of Fame acting career. He was in the Dirty Dozen, wasn't he? Wasn't Gene Hackman? Gene Hackman was in some of those action movies.
You
from
go French Connection.
French Connection. He was in
Bonnie and Clyde.
Birdcage.
Birdcage is my favorite.
Birdcage is an all-timer. I think if
he
you poll
won
the audience.
the Academy Award for French Connection, right? I mean,
yes.
I think he has 2 Academy Award Best Actor wins.
That one and Unforgiven was the other one.
Clint Eastwood
Yeah,
number.
Unforgiven was great.
Heartbreakers.
Yeah, I mean, he later in his career, he leaned into comedy in ways that were he was in the Royal Tenenbaums.
He was on Triple D's.
He was great. When I became a Gene Hackman fan was when I was young and he was old, and I hadn't known him for all the great roles that he built his career on. I knew him as a character actor later in life, and he was knocking it out of the park. He willingly retired, seemingly as his career was still he was probably at the end of his career making more money than he had ever had in his entire career per role.
He was in The Firm with Tom Cruise, and I'm not sure who the bigger star was at the time.
It was Tom Cruise.
Well, you love Tom Cruise. I think people forget that Tom Cruise. Do I have my history on this right?
Tom Cruise is the biggest movie star ever.
Okay, you've said this before, but
Also the smallest.
Do I have my? No, he is not. There are many, many smaller. There are also.
Who's taller, him or Stallone?
Oh, Dustin Hoffman.
I was stunned in Nosferatu how small Defoe is.
Defoe is very tiny, but also
Mississippi Burning, Defoe and Hackman.
Absolutely. And someone said Dustin Hoffman. Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman started acting together in a small playhouse in Pasadena, and they were both voted least likely to succeed. Everybody in their class hated them and thought they weren't any good. And so Hackman moves to New York in order to become an actor. And when he's in New York, him, Hoffman, and who's the third guy? They were all roommates. Is it Robert Duvall? Yes,
that's a loaded room right there.
That's insane, right? Him, Robert Duvall, and Dustin Hoffman as roommates, struggling actors trying to make it, being told by everybody, "You suck. Go get a day job."
I have here a text from David Sampson on this. So you're saying
Duval.
Your timing wasn't great on that. I could have used that about 10 seconds ago. I saw you say bleep. I saw you mouth bleep and then run to the computer.
I get that on my butt.
He said Robert Duvall, he said it 3 times. I'm staring straight at you.
I don't just have every sound at my disposal.
This is what, you do.
I have to type some in.
You literally are the one who has every sound at his disposal. The text from David Sampson that informed me. Pardon me?
Speaking of small people.
David Sampson sent me a text that informed me that Gene Hackman had died because he is the person, not surprisingly, like many of you are, who likes to be the one informing others.
Taylor more than most, but yes.
That they had died. But the way that he did it was in the most Sampson way possible. Gene Hackman may have just gotten the final photo for Sunday's In Memoriam. Because the Oscars are Sunday.
Definitely did.
He's going to make the cut, huh?
What a weird thing to think of.
I thought about it too.
Bet his family's thinking about it. Like,
Definitely.
If the timing, this is good timing.
It's not that he would be in the In Memoriam.
I'm just
it's
saying.
that he would be at the what position he would have.
Well, I would
in
assume
it.
he's at the end because the whole thing is already pre-produced.
If he dies a week later, he's just middle of the pack in the Memoriam next year.
He might get forgotten.
They got enough time. Hey, guys, I'm going to say this right now. It's Wednesday, Thursday. They've got enough time to come up with the little mini montage package for him. That's not just an In Memoriam. This dude is one of the great actors of all time. 2-time Oscar winner, like Jessica pointed out.
Better have him singing "We Are Family" to himself awkwardly as he tries to make it through a drag club.
Can you guys get for me the sound when you mentioned whether Gene Hackman was one of the greats Yesterday on the show, we were talking about Timothée Chalamet and his speech, and I want to play this again because one of the things that we didn't get into enough, Jessica had said, I think, that there was a negative reaction to this, that and I found that part interesting because I'm used to in sports, we want you to fake the humility, right? We want you to give us humility even if it's false, instead of arrogance, even if it's the truth. And I'm used to it in sports. We want our athletes to be humble instead of too cocky, although we'll allow cocky if they win. But I was surprised to hear that this was meant negatively when all he's telling you is, I don't take this for granted. I'm going to work really hard because listen to how much I care about being good at this.
I know the classiest thing would be to downplay the effort that went into this role and how much this means to me, but the truth is this was 5.5 years of my life. I poured everything I had into playing this incomparable artist, Mr. Bob Dylan, a true American hero, and it was the honor of a lifetime playing him. It's an honor I share with Monica, Elle, Edward, the entire cast, who in a genre doing a biopic that could be perhaps tired. Everyone gave it their all, so I'm deeply grateful to them. And lastly, I can't downplay the significance of this award because it means the most to me. And I know we're in a subjective business, but the truth is I'm really in pursuit of greatness. I know people don't usually talk like that, but I want to be one of the greats. I'm inspired by the greats. I'm inspired by the greats here tonight. I'm as inspired by Daniel Day-Lewis, Marlon Brando, and Viola Davis as I am by Michael Jordan and Michael Phelps, and I want to be up there. So I'm deeply grateful to that. This doesn't signify that, but it's a little more fuel, it's a little more ammo to keep going. Thank you so much.
Do any of you have a theory for me on, you want your artists to care, obviously. What is the objection, given that all of us would like to be confident, right? What is the objection that we have as people to somebody knowing they're good? What's the problem with it?
I think what it does is it reminds everyone who's not great how not great they are. I think there's a general crabs in a bucket feeling that humans have.
But what he says, though, this is a person who has all of the acting options in the world. When he simply says, I poured 5.5 years of my life into this, like, I'm good. Like, whatever you say about what that experience was, seems like you cared about it a hell of a lot more than I've cared about most things when you've you've got all the choices in the world, and you decide to tackle the degree of difficulty on that, right? Bob Dylan, let me do this, because this could be cheese. Like this, if I do this poorly, or if I do this a note off, this is a monster failure, because the degree of difficulty on playing Bob Dylan when you're a young person, and Bob Dylan is sort of mortified by the entirety of what this entire Hollywood existence is?
I think it's a common trope that people want to root for the unassuming hero, right? Like it's in a lot of movies and stories. Yeah, I mean, Dune, that's the Paul Atreides character in Doom. He's like, the unassuming hero, Harry Potter, whatever, Frodo Baggins. Like people find relatability in like not wanting to show a person that you root for not wanting to like show other people that they're trying really hard and they're working really hard for something, because then it can come off as cocky. And I think that he's telling you right now, like he's okay with you knowing that he's working really, really hard at this and that he's actually doing it because he wants to be great. He's not someone who's like, oh shucks, like I don't know how this all happened, whoopsies, I guess I'm really good at this.
Yeah, I think the part that I will imagine the part that people find objectionable isn't him saying I put 5.5 years into this. I think that's the part where everyone like, wow, that's cool. It's the part where he says, I know it's a subjective business and I want to win everything. I'm inspired by these great actors as I am by these great performers in objective fields where the measure of greatness is how many times did you win, right? That's the part that is a departure from where we see usual actors going. But to answer your question, why are people turned off by that? Like I said, it's a massive reminder of like, oh, this guy has a gift and he's going after it. And me, I got to go to my regular job and deal with my jerk boss who jumps on my neck every morning in a shadow show and doesn't get the references that I make.
I wonder if people think that the people who have gotten to the top of things did so easily. And I say this because when I'm reading Will Smith's book, I'm still surprised at how much he cared about working to the detriment of everything else, because that tends to be where climbing people end up arriving. But on this particular person that we're talking about, we all know he's good. Why is he not allowed to know it? Like, we all know it. It's why he's one of the few people. Do you realize how splintered this all is now? There are very few movie stars you're going to a movie to see now because of the choice that person has made. He's one of them.
Am I weird for thinking that he is showing humility in that clip, because he's very deeply honored by who he beat there, and then he's allowed to say what his goals and aspirations are and how this is a mile marker on that way. True greatness doesn't shy away from opportunities to be great. If Timothée wants to prove how great he is, there's only one role that he should take to prove it. It's in development right now. He needs to be young Vincent Hanna in Heat 2.
I was with you until the last part.
He needs to be young. He needs to be young Vincent Hanna, because everyone knows how heavy Al Pacino played that role. You can't shy away from this now.
You want to see Timothée Chalamet, as you called him.
You can't do that. You can't pronounce his name.
That's
that
how
way.
he pronounces it.
You shouldn't do it. He can do it. You shouldn't.
I call him by his name.
She's got a great ass.
To 2022. Omicron is on the run, and away it went. But oops, there goes gravity, and here comes a new variant. Omaha, Corona, Hut 1, Hut 2, nothing infects the Super Bowl, and nothing stops football.
Racism, greed, trauma to brain and spine. And yet, I cannot look away. Heroes are dead. Science has their heads. Oh, is there no escape from here? I need to know. It eats my soul. Nothing stops the NFL. Is this heaven or hell? I can't tell. It's human cockfighting. CTE, prayer circles. They blackballed the black baller. They tried to end racism by stenciling it in the end zone. Billionaire boys using millionaires as toys. It's all immoral, all unethical. Ooh, the witching hour. Nothing stops the NFL. Is this heaven or hell? I can't tell. It's Urban and Snyder and Flores and Gruden, but Kyler, but Kelsey, but Cooper, but Canty. It's cheating and tanking and bounties and banking, but
This is behind the bit. This is behind the bit. This is behind the bit.
I miss ESPN. I miss it so much. I miss those 4 letters that got me into every restaurant in America.
So yesterday, we tried to get a Valentine's Day reservation. We're like, we're going to send Stugotz out on Valentine's Day at about 5 o'clock, and he needs a reservation in a couple of hours at a very busy place.
Dan, when did you discover Stu had a talent for getting reservations?
I wouldn't say necessarily that Stugotz had a talent for getting reservations. Stugotz has a broader talent of getting whatever it is that he wants by whatever means necessary. Sleaze disguised as charm, greed disguised as I'm your buddy. Stugotz knows how to get things. I don't know that he's got a greater skill of any kind
than getting a dinner reservation.
Than how to get things for Stugotz.
Lodge, may I help you?
Yeah, hi, what's your name?
My name is Georgia.
Hi, Georgia. That's a beautiful name. How are you?
Fine.
I'm hoping you can help me out. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way.
Thank you very much.
How's the restaurant doing?
Very good.
The restaurant is near and dear to my heart. You know, I got engaged there.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah, I got engaged there. So, you know, I love Hustletown. It's one of my favorite cities. I got engaged at your restaurant. So the city and the restaurant mean a lot to me. I really botched this one up. So I'm hoping, Georgia, you can help me out, okay?
Okay.
So I was supposed to make reservations at your restaurant tonight, and I failed to do it. And so I've been calling in favors all day. Like, I just hung up the phone with JJ Watt, and he said, listen, you can throw my name around and tell him that you and I are friends. I love JJ. He's the best. You like JJ?
Sure.
So he said, listen, if I have to call on your behalf, I will, but just saying my name there should get you through. And so I'm just trying to get a table for 4 tonight at 7:30 if possible. Prime time, it.
Let me see what I can do.
Last-minute dinner reservations, they're very stressful. Everything is last minute for me. And so what I told Dan, when it gets down to the last minute, you got to do what you got to do. If I have to use Le Batard's name, I will use Le Batard's name to get me into a restaurant. If I have to use Will Perdue's name in Chicago to get myself into a restaurant, I will use Will Perdue's name, and I have used Will Perdue's name to get me into a restaurant. And so restaurant reservations are really me at my best because I'm doing it last minute, and I know I have to lie. When I know I have to lie, I'm really good at lying.
Maybe you take someone from the 7:30 category, that range, who doesn't quite have the promotional platforms that I have. You bump them down to 5:30. Boom. You put me, Luke Longley, and Ron Karkovice, 7:30 prime time.
I know that sounds amazing, but unfortunately,
listen, I'm bringing Willie Galtz. I'm bringing Willie Galtz. Willie Galtz.
You could bring anybody you wanted, but I unfortunately can't push any reservations that are.
What if I brought Barack Obama? I mean, a friend of a friend, I will make a call. I'll see if the Obamas have Valentine's. But if I bring him in, I got the table, right?
Oh, well, you do have a table at 5:30 if you want to make that.
Well, hold on, but Barry likes to eat later.
When he says he's at his best, he means, and it's true, he is at his very worst. We have discovered over the years that Stugotz's gross and shamelessness is a mountain of content willing to be made and molded into perpetual labs.
But I get my table.
He does get his table. Will Perdue never shows up, but he gets his table. He gets his table, though.
Stu, is your favorite line to get a reservation, I got engaged here?
Listen, I got engaged there. Well, you'll save my marriage. What else might be, the end of my marriage? I got engaged there to my wife 15 years ago. I got engaged there.
Uh-huh.
That's certainly a go-to line. I got engaged here 5 years ago. This place really means a lot to my wife. We've never been to that city. We've never been to that restaurant. But listen, those are the keys to getting yourself a reservation when you're calling 16 minutes before you have to be there on your wife's anniversary.
Fake romance.
You have to say, it's my wife's favorite restaurant. There are dozens of restaurants across this country that think that they are Abby's favorite restaurant.
Yes.
None of you are.
All over the country.
Has Stu's Clark University lacrosse scoring record ever gotten him perks as an adult?
Oh, God.
I am Clark University's all-time leading scorer in lacrosse. I hold every record. I mean, I graduated 20 years ago, and I still have all the records, every one of them. I am top in points, number 1 in goals, number 1 in assists, points per game.
Okay.
I'm a legend up there.
Yes, it's Mother's Day, though.
Yeah, I
You
understand.
realize we have 1,000 reservations.
I do understand that, but
I don't believe anything good other than mockery has come from Stugotz alleging that he holds a scoring record at Clark University in lacrosse that none of us believe that is. I don't remember the
It's on the internet.
I don't remember the details about that team.
Right.
But I think what we surmised was what ended up being true there, that you do indeed hold the record, but it was a series of teams that finished in last place, and it was clearly inferior lacrosse.
I had a great season. I really did. I had a great season. Our team, 1-10. But I had a great season.
Stu, has anyone ever gotten really mad at you on the phone making one of these reservations?
Oh, that's a good question. Confused. Certainly, they're confused. Why is this person talking so long to me? Why is he telling me about Will Perdue coming into the restaurant and bringing roses for all the customers?
That's part of the secret, right? To keep them on the hook,
Yes.
right? To batter them around, to disorient them.
If I say one name over there, one name over here, roses over there, wife's favorite restaurant over there, anniversary here,
Cloud of
hopefully they're
smoke.
confused enough, or they just say yes.
Yeah,
that's the whole key.
It's all an elaborate kind of torture of like a Navy SEAL would learn this in Guantanamo on how to disorient an interrogation subject.
I'm going to confirm your reservation now. I'm assuming you're going to be here.
Yes.
But I just need a phone number to put on file.
Yeah, no problem. I am notoriously great at commitment, but let me get you this phone number here. I want to give you the right number. It is 954 TRO
Okay.
TYAZ. I mix Trot and Yaz. They're my two favorite Boston athletes ever. That's how I do it. All right, so we're going to be there 12:30. We're really looking forward to it. Again, I got engaged there. This means the world to me. So this is unbelievable, and my wife is very excited. I'm assuming it's I'm bringing all these people and it's comp.
No.
Okay.
I do think the table for 17 on Christmas Eve at Prime Italian was the one time where someone got mad at me. But I said I was making it for Dan.
That's right. No, I got mad at him. I got mad at him because the busiest day of the year in Miami at the busiest restaurant, he wanted a table for 17, and I learned, once they get the table for 17, didn't even go.
No,
it was
I did.
for 17 friends.
And when they asked me the name on the reservation, I said Le Batard.
Unbelievable.
All right, just need one more thing from you, Stugotz.
Yes.
I do need a deposit.
Okay, let me get that from Dan. Hold on a second.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show is presented by Venmo.
I miss those calls. He needs to try to do that again, resurrect that again. I want to get to the Kevin Durant news because it's now just sort of being reported as fact that he's not going to be with the Suns anymore in the offseason. I wanted to know what you thought his value was at 37. And I will tell you, I don't know whether Jeremy and Mike Ryan got excited for the third or fourth time about Kevin Durant's availability, but I will tell you the Miami Heat are not in that game anymore. And it's not just because they don't want to be in that game. It's because all the Suns want are picks for Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant is going to get a lot of picks. The Suns are starting over because that's the highest payroll ever and the highest tax ever, and they have to get out from under it because they're not even a playoff team. You can't have the highest payroll ever and the highest tax ever and not make the playoffs. So what's the value of Kevin Durant? He's being talked about as a fit in Dallas.
Not the highest payroll, not the playoffs, not the play-in. They're on the outside looking in of the play-in. This would be the most expensive, most disastrous failure in the history of basketball, to pay that much and not even be able to have a chance to play in a little rinky-dink winner-take-all little tournament to get into the 7 or 8 seed. Obviously, Dan, the big thing is that Kevin Durant ultimately controls that. If he says, the only place I'm going to go is here, again, what we talked about with Damian Lillard a couple of years ago, then that shapes the conversation. As far as Miami having picks, they've got, I believe, they send theirs this year, but they have one coming from Golden State that's probably going to come in because it's only top 10 protected. And then they have one that they owe to Charlotte. And other than that, they have all their picks. But again, you can go out and get picks. You can go out and figure out what are the things that you're going to pawn off in order to get what it takes to get Kevin Durant.
That's the ask. The ask is picks. I'm just surprised that we're there. Like, what a spectacular failure, man. Like, that is what a giant failure to have an owner come in. And I know that we are critical of all the things the Miami Heat didn't do, but we were critical, at least in part, because the Phoenix Suns were doing those things, and those things have not worked.
Kevin Durant is a champion, multiple champion, Olympic gold medalist, probably the greatest scorer I've ever seen, an unprecedented type of scorer with that body type given his range. And I look at his career and I say, what if? I say, what if? Because he's after Golden State. Look, he was the best player on those Golden State teams. And every decision that he has made since deciding that he was going to leave Golden State has not worked out. And it's not entirely his fault. It could be an inch on a shoe, or it could be partnering up with Kyrie Irving and that whole thing blowing up. The Nets plan, how many games did they play together, their big three? And then the decision to push his way out of there and land on Phoenix. I know Miami was in that mix and ended up losing, but none of these things have worked out for Kevin Durant. He honestly, if he just stayed put, he'd be talked about on the same level as LeBron, I think.
But he didn't want to stay put. And I think that's the important thing for him was the intellectual pursuit of, yeah, I know I could stay here and it'll be perfect and we'll keep winning, but I don't want to win that way anymore, right? I did it. That was fun. Now I want to go see, like, can I do it a different way? Can I do it, quote unquote, my way? He was on with Draymond Green on his podcast yesterday or the other day, and they said, hey, why didn't you come? Why did you veto a deal to bring you back to Golden State? And he said, I don't want to do that in the middle of the year. I mean, I understand how much change and shift happens there. If that's something that's going to happen, let us pursue it in the offseason. Let's go in there with a plan. Let me not land in the middle of a season while you guys are trying to do something, I'm trying to do something. And I think that all lends to he wants to win in a particular way.
You guys say, though, that this has been botched at the end, and I want to rewind, okay, because we forget what our criticisms are in the moment. I know how popular what Phoenix was doing was. It was really popular, the way that Phoenix got into the game. Now, hold on a second. Kevin Durant's career, the choices he made, when you look at the pressure around these people, Barry Bonds, wherever it is that he was using steroids, it's because he was watching Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, lesser players climb above him in all the ways. Kevin Durant got left behind because of the choice LeBron made and then had to make a series of choices, felt the pressure to please us. Like it felt like that's what we wanted from him. Hey, keep up with what's happening here. And now we criticize it. But he was trying to keep up with what was happening with the most competitive people of the day after what LeBron built. So the choices he had to make remember the Sports Illustrated stories of I'm always second place. I'm one of the best there's ever been, but I'm always second place. There was a pressure to keep up with all the things LeBron was doing. That's why the choices got made.
I understand why you think it sounds like I'm criticizing him. I'm not. I'm really not. Kevin Durant has made it abundantly clear who he is and what he's motivated by. I'm just bummed that it hasn't worked out for him, that his decision-making has been bad and or unfortunate. I mean, the Achilles injury, too, that's another unfortunate chapter. A lot of this stuff has been out of his control. We talk about all these stops that he's had. He's been good. He's been the one constant. He's been the one thing that everybody can count on. He's always been about ball. Even when his body has betrayed him, you know that his focus is on ball. He's not a distraction. He's not making waves. Yeah, maybe he pays attention too much to what people are saying on social media, and he's a bit surly, but he genuinely cares about his craft, and it just hasn't worked out, and I'm bummed for him.
The thing with Kevin Durant's career that's funny is obviously he came in a few years after LeBron, but he sort of followed that same model and path, which is LeBron at 26 goes to Miami, goes and wins a couple of titles, and then makes choices to go to two separate franchises after that, where it's also worked out. For Kevin Durant, he waited till his age 28 season, but he ends up at Golden State, wins a couple of titles, and tries to do the same thing, make another decision. He doesn't go back to Golden State because it's home and all of the things LeBron had with Cleveland. He tries to create another super team in Brooklyn. It doesn't work out. So he pivots. Let's go to Phoenix. Let's see if it works out. He's just surrounded himself with a couple of organizations that didn't know how to build it around them necessarily, and stars that didn't complement him the way that LeBron had stars complimenting him.
Jeremy, I'm stunned by something that I think is the first time I've ever seen it happen in 20 years doing this show. While you were talking, Amin looked at his wristwatch. I've never seen someone on our show do that. We have clocks all over the place here.
No. He's got one of those Apple Watches. It's probably a text message, right?
Thank you,
I thought you
I
made
got
a good point.
Dan,
jeez. I don't know what Dan's doing there. He
Dan
just
thinks people still look at their watches that way.
very clearly doesn't like you.
He just did that.
of the
I've
time-
never seen. Wait a minute. I'm not even directing that at Jeremy. I'm directing it at Amin.
You know what? 99% of the time I check my watch, it's purely performative.
What were you checking your watch for?
I have, as Roy pointed out, it's a smartwatch. So when I get alert, like
poop chat?
a text message or whatever, it hits
Who
me.
pooped?
And so I
Brad
just check to
Williams,
see
number 72.
And as we've established, I have a very expensive watch, so I just try to draw attention to it.
We are doing a show live, and I see my co-host do this in front of the cameras.
Did you think he was bored by Jeremy?
I wasn't in front of the cameras because
Obviously,
Jeremy
he
was
thought.
on camera because Jeremy was talking.
I even locked eyes with Jeremy at one point. I got a little weird.
What I know is that he wasn't listening to what Jeremy was saying.
I absolutely listened to every single word he was saying. What are you talking about?
You're capable
You
of
think
doing
if I looked that way? Oh no, now I'm in another world because I looked in a different direction. Now I'm back. I'm looking at Jeremy. Now I know what he's talking about. Oh no, now I've looked away. What's
It does
Jeremy talking about?
connote
Who
wrap
knows?
it up, though. Like, if I look at my watch during a show, I'm like, all right.
Where
let's
are you
I mean,
just-
I didn't have that feeling.
You're
I was
siding with
fine
Dan.
with it.
There
Let me
you
make
go.
it abundantly clear. I
He's
know
pitting
Amin can
us
listen to me
against
and
each
check
other
his
You're
watch.
again.
falling for it again. He's stirring shit.
He looked at his watch. I didn't do that.
You're the one that mentioned
How
it.
did you feel about
It
my
was on
amazing point, Amin?
camera. It was on camera.
What was it?
Was it?
It was
I
like your
saw
camera
it
was
on
locked
the
in on the guy
cameras.
talking.
I want
We have a preview screen. You can't tell the difference.
All right.
It's always been an issue
How
with
did
you.
this get turned around on me?
Because you stir shit and you try to walk away like we don't notice and you pit us against each other to create friction on the air.
Look, you're sitting here saying you just got done. I didn't even correct you on this. You just got done saying that an Achilles injury was out of his control when they rushed him back on that team. You've just made this out of his control when he's the one looking at his watch while we're doing the show.
Well, sounds like it was on someone else's control.
First of all, number one, they didn't rush him back. He wanted to get back out there. It was a decision that was made collectively. It wasn't like, KD, when you come back, like, okay, I guess I'll give it a try. That's not what happened. And I hate when people do that. And then when you say, well, no, he had a part in it, people say, well, you know what, players never going to say, well, he's not a child. He knows himself. He knows his body. He knows where he can push himself. It was unfortunate. It wasn't an Achilles strain that turned into a ruptured Achilles. It was a calf strain that also had an Achilles rupture that happened after it. So we're not going to do that thing where it's like he had his arm twisted behind him. Much like we're not going to do the thing where literally the only human being in the world, because I'm counting the millions of viewers on YouTube who noticed it, was you. Yes, I distracted someone by checking what the hell that alert was on my watch. The someone wasn't the person who was talking. And furthermore, I knew what Jeremy was talking about. But I suspect, Dan, you had no idea because you were so thrown off by me just doing this action right here. Dan, what was Jeremy talking about?
It's a rude action.
What was Jeremy talking about?
He was talking about the decisions that Kevin Durant made.
What? It's more specifically.
You be more specific. I'm not going to take a quiz. You distracted me with your watch, and now I'm just embarrassed because I really did think you were looking for the time. I didn't think that you were looking for notifications on tweets that you're missing.
Not a tweet. I'm not Greg Cody. I'm an actor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go to Twitter for validation, Dan. The viewers do. Hulu, Memes and Nightmares. Catch it right now.
You've mentioned that a few times the last couple of days as the movie star that you are. I'd rather talk. Can you guys get for me, please, the call from last night's game? Because I thought it was a perfect call. You got Michigan State and Maryland at the end of the game. I've enjoyed watching Maryland this season. Michigan State doesn't have the ball. Michigan State is on defense, and the game is tied. So Maryland's got the ball, and you think at home they've got a chance to win the game with very little difference between the shot clock and the game clock. But what happens after that as a call is a perfect call because the sound, if you can close your eyes, the sound of the ball going into the basket from more than half court on the buzzer beater to win the game, and how quickly the announcers got there with the guttural sound that all of us make when we're stunned was perfect broadcasting.
Gillespie for three. Goal or no. Holloman looks the clock. Half court for the win. Oh! Oh my goodness!
That sound of the ball, like you have to hear this swoosh from more than half court. The violence of the speed of the ball's travel makes a sound that you never hear with a buzzer beater. And then right after that, the announcers. There can't be a lot of feelings in basketball better than that, right? Not just making the game-winning shot, but making it from there. Just watching the flash. That's something you will remember for the rest of your life. You'll be Gene Hackman's age, and you will be thinking about feelings don't get better than that.
And you'll remember the sound of the ball hitting somehow, like, I guess, back iron and also the net at the same time. It's so loud. It's the way that guys will viscerally remember the crack of the bat on a walk-off home run. You don't often get that sound on a buzzer beater.
Jeremy, that was me at the World Series, Game 1, right? I'm at this game, big Yankees fan. Okay, here we go. We're going to do it. Like, all right, we're going to steal Game 1. And then Freddie Freeman, like, I was literally videoing it on my phone. Yeah, I was videoing on my phone, and I heard the crack, and literally, I can send you guys the video. I stopped recording before I didn't even look at where the ball. I was like, it's over.
Oh, that's awesome.
That thing went to Altadena. Like, it was gone.
All right, I want to play this again, and I want to tell you that this is a watermelon being dropped 12 stories into a dumpster. Like, that's not a basketball shot. That is awesome. That ball is traveling way too fast and heavy.
You're on to something. It absolutely sounds like something heavy thrown into a dumpster. Like, you ever have to take the trash out and it's really heavy and you just do this, like, when what's it, the shot put? You do the little.
The hammer throw.
Oh my goodness!
I mean, well, but do you know, I have one of the reasons that that's so great is because of all the times that I have listened, 99.9% of the time, for the announcer to go into for the win. Not even close. Yeah. We go to overtime. Like, because that shot never goes in, but it certainly never goes in after that sound. Let's figure out, do you have a nominee better than a watermelon being dropped 12 stories into an empty dumpster? That's not the way a game-winning sound, you want to hear the net. Like, the net is what you hear, not the collision. It also sounds like somebody banging on the side of a dumpster. It has an echo.
I'm staying with throwing the trash into the dumpster and it hits like the side of the dumpster.
You accidentally slam the refrigerator door a little too hard, so you hear like the suction.
Boom. Yep. That's
Mike, is there any particular reason that before the show today that you were talking about a Bruins fight from 50 years ago?
Yeah, because I had never known about this fight. Did you guys know that there was a fight in hockey that was worse than Malice at the Palace?
Yes.
Yeah.
I had no idea. This was something that had just dawned on me in the hockey chat. Bob Wischusen put it in there. Had no idea.
Really?
I had no idea that this existed, with Boston Bruins going into the stands and fighting New York Rangers fans.
With skates on.
With skates. This is very dangerous.
Mike Milbury beat somebody with his own shoe.
Ray Bourque was on the ice for this game. That's how old Ray Bourque was.
Thank God it was a shoe.
Didn't he throw his shoe? What did he, or what?
No, he took the guy's shoe off and beat him with it.
Who throws a shoe?
Honestly.
One of the great videos that we've ever shown was the reflexes of George Bush avoiding a thrown shoe as an insult. I was not aware until that moment that the thrown shoe was an insult, although I could have inferred it.
Can't imagine how clunky and awkward it is to climb the lower level while you're wearing ice skates. But I guess a stick also helps you maintain your balance.
It's like climbing Mount Everest.
You have the hockey stick, but you have lethal weapons not only in your gloves, but also on your feet. I would not want to fight a hockey player under any circumstances, even if they're wearing their full uniform and we're on dry land.
You believe that hockey players on skates can't walk around or run around the way that the rest of us would in running shoes because they are always in skates and know how to treat it as their foundation?
I imagine they're a lot better at it than I, but this presents its challenges. There's beer on the floor. If I were to fight a hockey player that was in full uniform, I'd say sand. Let's fight in sand.
Or in the pool.
It's a good choice. Yeah, because
everyone's lighter. I could lift them up.
No, but then absolutely not in the pool because they have those razors on
You'll
their
bleed
feet.
out faster.
No, terrible suggestion.
No, that's a good one.
We're going shoreline.
Let's talk this out.
The PK Subban sound. That's what made it so objectionable to me, Mike.
You really don't like him.
But it was just like, come on, man. Like, you cannot have this big of a blind spot. Right? And someone said to me, well, he's just defending his sport. I said, no, he wasn't defending his sport. He was taking shots at our sport without any of the context. And that fight, Mike, is one of the examples. It's like, yes, that can happen in hockey. Like, oh, that was a crazy Tuesday night. And in the NBA, it was culture wars.
Assault.
It was
I'm sure if that happened today in hockey,
wasn't that the 70s?
It wouldn't just be like, oh, that was fun.
The 70s.
But do you think there would be as much of a reaction from people to arrest the players?
No, I don't. Right?
The Kachuk brothers went into the stand and started beating on Canadians. Yes, I think that there would be. I'm not saying it would be the same. There's a lot of cultural stuff going on
in the free
here.
state
I'm not
of
saying
Florida?
it'd be exactly the same, but to say that we would just be like, oh, Connor McDavid and Kachuk went into the crowd and with their skates on and started attacking fans, that would be a massive story.
Chris,
today.
let me put it this way: if Connor McDavid and Kachuk start fighting in the middle of the ice,
that's a Tuesday night. I'm with you.
All right, we can't do that in our sport.
That's fair.
If two guys
we
did
were
that
talking
in
about
ours-
going into the crowd.
But I'm just saying, it's a double standard, right? So what's acceptable? Whatever the penalty is, if that happened today in hockey, of them going in stands, it would be less than what the penalty would be if it happened in the NBA.
Marty
I don't
McSorley
think so.
was found guilty of assault with a deadly weapon on the ice. Like that, I'm old enough to remember that scandal in that sport. It was huge.
Did they have to change the entire sport because of that?
I haven't seen it since.
Did they have to change the sport? I'm not saying
You're asking me a question I'm not fully
I
informed
think Amin is,
on.
to just boil down his point into something more simple, black people are treated differently than white people.
Or seen as more threatening in video where people are fighting. The Kachucks are not the same as Steven Jackson and
We
Ron
noted
Artest.
Donald Brashear was the victim in the Marty McSorley thing.
And Marty McSorley never played again.
Okay, I'm asking you guys: did everyone in hockey have to start wearing suits after that? And did they ban wearing? That's my point. They changed.
The New York Islanders.
A baggy white tee just is not practical. You have healthy scratches too. You don't just chill on the bench when you're not playing.
You do realize why this is so personal to him, right? He had a team that was championship worthy that got derailed by the rule changes forced by Amari Stoudemire taking a step off the bench once they changed all the rules.
I got it. Well, all I'm maintaining is that has more to do with 1979 than it has to do with the sport.
Well, we didn't talk nearly enough about how grainy the footage was that we were watching back in 1979, because if that was the video that we had in the modern day, if it was that grainy, if it looked like it came from the Jacksonville Jags facility, we wouldn't air it anywhere nationally because the footage is too grainy because the televised sports were so shitty.
It never looked that bad. As someone that had a square TV and was watching stuff in standard def, those TVs were made for that stuff. I think it looks worse because we're digitizing all the video, right?
Bang, you're absolutely right. Our screens are to blame. They're too good. They point out all the imperfections. Whereas if this were still a regular old school tube, that would have been clear footage.
Think about how good people thought this looked at the time. Like, you're like, wow.
No,
you get a new TV, you turn it on, you're like, wow.
It didn't look like that. I know I'm going to sound like the old guy. It didn't look like that because
it didn't look great, though.
The screen wasn't good enough to show those imperfections. So because the screen resolution wasn't good enough, it looked fine. The problem is our modern screens are so good that now you're seeing all the little imperfections that before were just blended in by the terrible resolution.
Glad we figured that out.
Yeah.
We're lying because every time I watch this, I'm like, I was there for that. That did not look that bad.
I wanted to discuss with you guys after seeing Paul George get dragged yesterday, a whole lot of people making fun of him for canceling or postponing his podcast, which is very popular and has been good, at least in part, because he gets very good guests to open up. But he said he is concentrating on working on his body and chasing a championship that the Sixers have no chance of getting. But the thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because we have talked a lot about how shitty the podcast business is for most because of how oversaturated it is, and everyone thinks they can do it and do it well, but people do forget that it requires a constant intake of content that can become a pressure. It can become very difficult. It can become, for some of these YouTube influencers, a total life consumption because you have to keep feeding the machine. So Kendrick Perkins has said of the Josh Hart and Brunson podcast that if that was his locker room, those guys would have smoke with him. He wouldn't allow that in his locker room, that those guys need to stop doing that podcast. Now, Paul George, because they're so bad, and I'm imagining it's taking a lot of his time, is checking out on his podcast for the moment, which is successful. What are your thoughts there? And Travis Kelce says podcasting is the hardest job in the world. Like, I do wonder if you have an honest conversation with Jason and Travis Kelce, if they're running from place to place in a way that's making them wonder if they should have said yes to all the things because of the amount of responsibility that comes when they start paying you that kind of money.
So when I first saw the excerpt, I didn't see the video. I saw a picture of Paul George and the excerpt. Paul George is going to take time off from podcast to focus on winning a championship. I swear to God, I thought it was NBA Centel. It was such a ridiculous
rest in peace
headline. Rest in peace. We'll get to that in a second. Such a ridiculous headline. Dan, I'm going to tell you right now, I was less believing of its reality than I was of Luka Doncic gets traded to the Lakers. Straight up. I was like, absolutely. This
has to be the onion. This has to be a spoof. To concentrate on a championship. You could have said postpone the podcast. It was the part about concentrate on a championship.
Absolutely. And so we taped Oddball, and we're done for the day. And then literally, as we're getting up, I see it on my phone, and I'm like, this isn't real. And so then we start scrubbing and looking for, and there's video, and he says it, and I said,
it's AI. You think it's AI still. You still don't believe it.
Allen Iverson?
Yes, it was Allen Iverson all along. Dan, it's not because it's all-consuming. It's because what we've been saying all year long, for him particularly, is, buddy, your individual season and your team season is not going great. Put it like, have some guest hosts fill in till you guys get this thing back on track, and then come back. Think about everything that's happened this season. Joel Embiid, injured to start the year. Joel Embiid shoves reporter in locker room. Team meeting called where they call out Joel Embiid. Their awful season. They're losing. The injuries, everything that's happening. And Paul George through it all was like, let me do it. Not only let me do show, but he would do shows that were like the worst contracts in the NBA. Like, you want to do the worst contracts in the NBA? Are you sure about that? You sure you want to do that?
They're like Bleacher Report slideshow episodes. Yeah.
But like, of all the things, it would be like Zion Williamson having a podcast and say, hey, who are the most out of shape athletes? You want to have that conversation? Really? Right? It was just a lack of self-awareness combined with contextually you're not having a great year. Sit it out. So for him to now at this point, when it's all said and done, they have a bottom 6 record, which is key because they keep their pick if it's in the top 6 of the draft, right? Joel Embiid might be done for the year. He's going to undergo some surgical option that might have him late to come back next season. Everything is finally put to rest. We're measuring the coffin. We're booking the funeral arrangements. And now he's like, got to focus on the championship, boys.
It is weird.
What?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys noticed yesterday in Houston, the oldest woman in America died, Elizabeth Francis, at 115 years old. She died without
collecting Social Security for another 40 years.
She died without seeing Joel Embiid get to a conference championship. 115 years old.
Big Sixer fan she was?
The idea that the Phoenix Suns could be as bad as they've been and not be the biggest disappointment in that league because of how much we love the splashy transaction. I remember Mike Ryan and many others celebrating how great Daryl Morey is at getting the guys because he does get the guys. But that Sixers season, that being that bad, good timing, I expected you to play the Gene Hackman sound. Or I expected you to play the Duvall sound 10 seconds late.
Confirmed.
Is it the Sixers season is an apocalypse? It's no one could have seen this coming, right? You could see Joel Embiid hurt, but you'd still expect Paul George and Maxey to do something.
You say it's the apocalypse. I say they are in the midst of the best chase in the NBA this season, Dan, for the 10 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Oh, God.
Do you know where we're at with that at this point? It's basically a 3-team race when you look at it between Matas Buzelis and them boys in Chicago. You got someone, Killian Hayes, I think, playing for the Brooklyn Nets these days. That's pretty crazy.
And Tyrese Martin.
And then Paul George and Tyrese Maxey in the Philadelphia 76ers. All of them are 2.5 games apart. You got Buzelis and the Chicago Bulls along with Josh Giddey, who's having a crazy few-game stretch. They're the 10 seed right now. Technically a playoff team. Dan, they're 13 games under 500. The Philadelphia 76ers themselves are 20-38 and could end up playing a first-round series against the Cleveland Cavaliers.
My favorite website around this time of year is this site called Tankathon. And it basically gives you all of like the reverse of what you would imagine, right? So they've got worst to best, and then the more you're losing, you get a little green highlight, and the more you win, it turns red. So for instance, the Brooklyn Nets, they've They've won 7 of their last 10 games. That's bad according to Tankathon. But the Philadelphia 76ers lost 9 in a row. That's really good. This team is not going to compete for a 10 seed, Jeremy. You know why? Because it is in its best interest to be awful at this point.
Well, of course.
You got to keep that pick, and that's what they're going to do. They're already doing it. You don't lose 9 of the last 10 games on accident. They're doing it because they need to keep that pick.
And so that Bulls-Nets race is going to be electric.
You know the Bulls are going to get it. This is their sweet spot for the last 5 years. They're like, we got good attendance. We're barely making the playoffs. Oh, we just fell short. Too bad. We're not going to change anything.
Dan, you know what the best part is? You know what happens if that pick isn't top 6? If it's like, say, 7? You know where it goes?
No.
Oklahoma City.
Oh, dear God.
I hate them so much.
Can you guys look up for me, please, the worst team to ever make the playoffs? Because I have not heard of an 18-game under 500 team making the playoffs. So if you can look up for me. I remember the Royals one year made the playoffs and may have won the World Series as largely a 500 team or close, but 18 games under 500, I know a lot of people say that the playoffs have too many teams in them, but that's asinine what you're saying. What you're saying is patently ridiculous. Like when that team's season ends, it needs to end. You don't want that to be undead. That needs to be dead when it gets to 82 games.
Dan, in the modern era, so I'm not going to count the stuff that happened in the 50s and 60s. That's just ridiculous. But in 1984, the Bullets made the playoffs 35-47. 1986, the Spurs did it with the same record. 1995, the Celtics did it.
You can't be 18 games under 500 and talking about a championship. Like, what are you doing? What are you?
That would be fun, though.
Don't let the Heat get
crazy.
Don't let the Heat get in.
Purple People Eaters, ladies and gentlemen. That's how they played the game back in my day. It's Len Dawson enjoying a smoke and a brew during a game. It's Hank Stram wearing a sports coat. Legalize the clothesline and bring back drop kicks while you're at it. I'm Greg Cody, and that's how it was back in my day. Ba-da-ba-diddly-up. Bop. That kind of thing.
Thanks for the lift, bro.
No problem.
Yo, what is this? Is this the musical? Turn it down, man. Like, I'm so tired of it.
Musicals are corny. The shit is corny. Like, me tiene hasta aquí with this musical stuff, man. Just turn it down. I want to just chill, man, for real.
I feel you, bruh. I used to be that same way. Then my dog Andrew Lloyd Webber touched my soul with Phantom. And I quickly realized that, man, musicals, they're the highest form of theatrical art that there is, my brother. Think about it. It combines song, movement, dialogue, and production in a comprehensive fashion that really can't be rivaled. I'm talking about really, like, intricate shit, man. In many ways, musical led the cultural change in the 1930s, which was considered to be the golden age of musicals. Had those supremely talented artists not pushed boundaries and helped shape the new American pathos back then, I don't know if I'd be here right now today, standing in front of you. No cap, like no capadonna. Musicals have the capability to make you feel ways that you never thought possible. Even if you might find the subject matter mundane going into it, by the end of the experience, you might find yourself spiritually enlightened through the magic of song and an occasional exposition to advance the story. Matter of fact, I'm feeling ways about football right now I could never dream prior to. I think I'm about to have a moment, my brother. Way down in the jungle deep, a lion bit a Viking on his motherfucking knee. It began in 1869, I see you, Mojo, with a match between the Princeton Tigers and the Scarlet Knights of Rutgers. Then in 1880, along came a man named Walter Camp, the father of American football, the Waltster, Wham, as they called him. He established the snap, the line of scrimmage, 11-player teams, and the concept of downs. The gladiator spectacle. Though the game has evolved over time, at the heart of it, the game of football is just a primal means to tell the age-old story of the triumph of the human spirit. Can you and your teammates overcome the brutal battery of physical and emotional trials over the course of a savagely cruel 18-week regular season, brother? And what be your reward for such a merciless gauntlet? A thrilling single elimination tournament that pushes the peak male form to high water marks year after year against the game's very best. All with the hope that you and your brothers in combat can rise above all others in one unified voice. Declare yourselves champion. That is why, with every fiber of our being, we love the playoffs.
When the best play, trenches face to face, sacrifice life and live for the Lombardi. If there's a way, Stafford turns it all around. It would have to be LA, it would have to be McVay. What'd you say? Tom Brady, always down. Could he turn it all around now? Turn it all around now. Wipes the blood from his lip. Holy shit, he's gonna do it all again, do it all again. It's time for the playoffs, so grab a beer, I hope it's Miller Lite. It's time for the playoffs, the playoffs. It's time for the good stuff, where every game comes down to guys who kick. It's time for the playoffs, the playoffs, the playoffs. Ah, the playoffs. Hot goalies, playoff beards, and Lord Stanley. No, Roy, I'm not talking about ice hockey. I'm talking about the NFL playoffs, the gridiron, winner go home, the ultimate postseason tournament. Here, let me show you. Big Ben's last game, Kyler's feeling shame. Upsets in Green Bay and in Tennessee. There's just no way Prescott's going to the ground. He slid 1 second too late, and they don't have a timeout. Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Arrowhead, become personal playgrounds. Too much time, 13 ticks. Holy shit, he's gonna do it all again, do it all again. It's time for the playoffs. Playoffs sometimes mean having to say goodbye. Even if you're not ready. Careers wind to an end. Mantles taken. Last chapter's written. But stars emerge to write new, exciting stories. For every door that closes, a new one opens. For every immunized quarterback that falls short, there's a young hotshot ready to take his place. There's nothing quite like playoffs. The playoffs. Heavy is ahead, then where's the crowd? I'm talking about the greatest of all time. He can turn it around in just one play. You can watch it all happen in the playoffs. The playoffs, it's the playoffs. Never is afraid. I see his face. The chosen. I'm talking about Evan McPherson. It's time for the playoffs. It's the playoffs, the playoffs, it's the playoffs.
Evan McPherson? The GOAT? He's a kicker. I mean, Tom Brady's bed's still warm. Tom Brady just left.
You're the greatest of all time. You're the greatest of all time.
He's beautiful in every way. It's out of control.
He throws the ball most accurately and won 7 rings.
So good at quarterbacking. He's meant to our decade teams.
A 6th-round draft pick with a chip on his shoulder and a dimple on his chin.
You're the greatest of all time. You're the greatest of all time.
He broke so many records and reached unattainable goals.
I said he was done 10 years ago when he shoved it down my throat.
He played the Jets twice a year and always ripped out their souls.
And just like that, he left us all wanting more. He's a certified GOAT.
You're the greatest of all time. You're the greatest of all time. You're the greatest of all.
The greatest of all time.
You're the greatest
The greatest of all time.
Hey, look, there's Michael Costa. Hey, of the Daily Show, the former tennis player, stand-up comedian. He's got a new book out, Lucky Loser. It's available to pre-order now, and you can get it everywhere. March 11th. I did not know. I should have known. I did not know that he was a former professional tennis player. That seems like a very lonely way to make a living.
It sounds even more insane to say, man, it's such a hard, competitive, lonely way to make a living. Let me be a stand-up comedian instead.
Yeah, that's what he chose. Michael, thank you for joining us. Which of those careers is lonelier?
Oh, that's a great question.
That's a good question.
I also love that I came in right after the Dookie Bomb T-shirt for sale. That made me laugh. You know, that stumped me. That question stumps me. So good first question. I actually think being a comedian is lonelier. Because I actually talk about this. I have this crazy night in Edmonton when I'm a brand new comic where these girls call my hotel room right after I performed and they say, "Hey, can we come upstairs to your room?" And tomfoolery ensues. And the next day, I'm all alone. and I have this great story that I want to tell everybody, but you're at a Best Western in Edmonton alone. Whereas even when I played tennis, and sometimes you were sharing a hotel room with competitors and with, you at least could pull a guy aside and say, check this out.
Do you think that one of the careers is harder than the other or more competitive than the other?
I think tennis is impossible, is nearly impossible. It's a nonstop calendar year, the physicality of it. I think comedy is tough, but you can make $14,000 a year playing bowling alleys the rest of your life pretty easily, I think. If you're willing to do the armpit joke and the can I get a volunteer from the crowd and do the whatever that
What is that? What is that act that you're turning into a career? You're a man who works with words for a living. I don't know what it is you're describing
This is true.
there.
Of course, only I would pick to do an act out on a radio show. But you get the volunteer from the crowd to come out. They put the arms through your armpits, and then you say, "Oh, we're cooking. We're making an omelet." And it's their arms and your
great gag.
Great gag. See,
14 grand a year, you say?
Yeah, probably.
A bowling alley tour, 14 grand a year.
Whose line is it anyways?
One of my first gigs, I was doing a bowling alley in a basement in Michigan, and I was bombing so hard that my feet were sweating.
Oh.
And I could hear the people above me bowling strikes, and it was this amazing dichotomy of success and failure, so close to each other.
Put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Have you ever been so embarrassed that your feet begin to sweat? How competitive is the Daily Show hosting? You guys are friends, but obviously that's a prime platform. So how does that one work? I imagine you all want it.
I appreciate that question. That's an astute question, because before we were pushed up to co-hosts or a host, whatever you want to call it, we were all in the same camp, right? We were all correspondents. We were all, hey, great piece to you. Hey, great piece to you. That was good writing. High five, and then we could all kind of get together and bitch about the actual host that was above us. It stayed remarkably friendly. I don't think anybody would deny that being in the chair is a tremendous honor and is something we all want. I think what helped is with this rotating host, Jon Stewart has Mondays, the rest of us, myself, Desi Leidick, Ronnie Chang, Jordan Klepper, take Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on a rotating. I think what helped is we won the Emmy for Best Late Night, and it kind of put everyone's egos, it gave us what we all wanted. And that helped with the competitiveness, so I thank the Emmy for that. Where is it, you ask? It's in my kitchen on display.
I did not ask that question, but I do want to know how competitive you are, because I imagine whatever it is that made you a professional tennis player, I know comedians are competitive and the stand-up comic world is competitive. So how weirdly competitive and unreasonably competitive are you?
Yeah, 100%. My dad used to say, at the bottom of the stairs, who can get up first? And there's 4 kids. I mean, well, that's an unnecessary challenge, and I'm 6 and I'm getting elbowed by my sister because my dad just said, go, who gets up there fastest? Extremely competitive. When I entered comedy, I quickly realized I had to back out of this competitiveness. I couldn't watch a show that I was also on hoping my competitors would fail so I would look funnier. That's a miserable way to be. In sport, it's accepted, it's encouraged, it's a necessity. But in the arts, it's exhausting, dude. It's okay if Dan goes up and has a great set, and then I go up and have a great set, and we're different and we're both funny. So I've had to undo a lot of this competitiveness, and it's exhausting being competitive, man. I just want to high five and hang out with you guys and not go, who had the best segment on the Le Batard Show today? That sucks.
Well, it's you. You're also our only guest. I'm shocked at how many former tennis players that I know, they just hated tennis and they excelled at it, and they hated it. Did you hate it while you were trying to succeed at it?
Yeah, I always thought it was BS when Rafael Nadal would win, and then he would go, "I just love the sport. I just love the sport." And it's like, are you serious? Because Andre Agassi says he hates the sport. Everyone I know has tennis trauma. I talk about a kid in this book who cheated me when I was 11. I still wait for the C train, hoping I run into that kid. I mean, I'm 45. I'm 45 years old. I have children. It really affects you, and I think the reason there's so much hatred to the sport is at a very young age you're thrown in these highly competitive, problem-solving situations alone. I also think that's why it's such a great sport for kids to play, is they learn how to navigate the world and unfairness. I needed more love for the sport to be more successful. I was losing a lot and was out of money. That's a tough recipe for tennis success. But now, after a break from the sport, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I also play once a month. I get 1 hour court time, run around. You know, it's a nice reminder that I was actually good at something.
Well, then you might be aware of the discourse right now going on with U.S. tennis. The Nothing Major Pod has put up a bracket of the most handsome male tennis players going on right now. Now,
I did not see that.
There was some bracket luck going on there because I don't actually think their Final Four is a true most handsome Final Four. So I'm going to run 4 names by you. You pick one in terms of attractiveness. These are active men. Yeah. Tommy Paul, Taylor Fritz, Matteo Berrettini, or Lorenzo Musetti.
And we're doing women next.
Yeah. I'm sensing that's a joke. Let's hope it is.
It is.
Although with the WTA, you could call some of them handsome.
Oh.
Let's take this opportunity for me to mention
Amen, brother.
I missed what she said. What did she say?
She has a character that's a sexist Bane.
Yeah.
Misogynistic
great.
Bane.
Love you, mean.
Perfect. Jessica, it's nice to meet you. You're very funny. You make me laugh a lot. Let's take this opportunity to mention that Musetti has a rap album.
No.
And you should be able to find it on Spotify.
Hamid's laptop
Hold
opened
on.
faster than I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Am I right?
I'm looking it up right now.
Wait a minute. That's a terrible question to ask
No,
after
I'm going to
you've
find
said
it because there's 2 active ATP players that rap. The Canadian Denis Shapovalov and I believe it's Lorenzo Musetti. He might have a single. Look,
Il Magnifico. That's his.
We've really gotten stuck in the quicksand here. We can look it up. It'll be easy enough. You can continue though.
I went and watched Berrettini lose a couple years ago at the U.S. Open, and it was remarkable that 96% of the audience was women, young women, divorced women, newly married women. I mean, it was remarkable. So what are we asking? Is Michael deciding who's the most handsome?
I just want your feedback as I decide that it's obviously Tommy Paul.
I think Tommy Paul is an excellent, handsome man who wears a shorter short, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think this whole baggy short thing, tennis, you got some of the best legs of all sports. What are you doing?
Yeah, Berrettini, though, is a dish. Not looking good for you, though. I did Google, and AI's overview on this is there's no information about a music album by tennis player Lorenzo Musetti.
I might be thinking of Sonego, Sonego.
All right, if you keep doing this, if you're just going to go through the whole
Dan,
circuit.
I'm sorry. I said it with so much confidence. I was certain it was true.
No, but then it was weird to watch the confidence leak out of you, and then you asked the question, "Am I right about that?" When you were asking us a question that we didn't know the answer to.
It is.
Sonego. I have to. It's Sonego. I have to admit that before I came on the show, I didn't brush up on Lorenzo Musetti's bio.
Okay, fair enough. You came on to talk about Lucky Loser. Why did you write it?
I wrote it because it even surprises me that I'm here now as a comedian, and I kind of had to recap what the hell was going on. I love tennis. That was my dream. And it didn't happen. I made $11,000 over 4 years. My career high ranking was 864 in the world, which is still my email signature. And I got hired on The Daily Show, was starting to have some comedy success, was starting to sell tickets, was starting to tour. And I was also about to have a kid. And I was like, I need to figure out how we got here, because it surprises me even when, as a kid, all the posters on my wall were tennis players. I think it's a really fascinating story. And when I share it with people, whether athletics or not, they pull from it and they connect. And I think it's a good lesson for all the young kids out there. Yes, have a dream, but you're probably going to fail at it. So if you can try to learn something from that first dream, odds are it'll help you with your second profession or career.
Michael, what was the thing that made you say, you know what, I'm going to try my hand at professional comedy?
I was out of money. When I used to play professionally, you win as a junior. Mm-hmm. In college, we won 4 Big Ten championships, University of Illinois. I won something like 80% of my matches in college. You get to the pros, all I'm doing is losing. Every week I'm losing. The tournament starts on Monday, and my Monday at 2 p.m., I'm out of the tournament. It's like, so what do you do with 6.5 days when you're in Zihuatanejo, Mexico, playing a $10,000 future? And if that city sounds familiar, it's because that's where Andy Dufresne escaped prison in the Shawshank Redemption. That was my first pro tournament. So I started to write ideas that were funny, interactions that were funny. I wanted my mind to get out of tennis just for an hour. And when I finally wrapped up, and I was living with my parents in Michigan, and I was hired as the assistant coach at University of Michigan, I had these binders of jokes. And I had a month before the team reported and before my life was going to be over as a college coach, as it is. And I signed up for an open mic, and I took these folders of jokes. And my first joke, which I describe in grave detail in the book, was called crotch karate. And I went around the audience and I pretended to karate chop them with my crotch. And it's bad then and it's bad now.
I just love the idea, like this was the birth of a great comedy career.
But why do you have binders filled with jokes? What were you doing? Clearly you were doing something.
That's true. I don't know if anything said crotch karate in those binders. It wasn't until later that I started to really dig into the binders and go, maybe you should use this stuff and stop trying to assault your audience.
But why the binders, though? What, you were thinking about it? It was something you wanted to?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah. I just, for one, it was a way to get my mind away from tennis. But yeah, I guess deep down there was always this passion for comedy. I mean, when I was 10 years old, that was Johnny Carson's last hosting night. I begged my parents to stay up late. I watched it. That's the Gary Shandling show. These things made me feel something I'd never felt before. But when you grow up in Michigan, show business is not an option. You don't even, it was all a fantasy. And so I wrote some stuff down. And then when I actually had an opportunity, and thanks to stand-up comedy, it's much like tennis in the sense that you can sign up. You, Dan, can sign up for an open qualifying tennis professional event if you want to. You probably will lose early, but there is an open forum. There's an open forum to be a stand-up comedy. So I had the jokes. I guess I had a passion for comedy, and that's what started. And once I did it, then I was screwed. Then you're screwed because you've tasted the sweetness, baby.
I'm curious. For me, I worked in basketball for 10 years in the NBA, and then obviously covering basketball. Whenever I watch a movie that's about basketball, all I see is just like, that's not how any of that works. This is awful.
Right.
Last year, Challengers came out and did very well. It's about tennis. I, as a tennis outsider, was like, oh, that's really cool. As a tennis person, how inaccurate or how far-fetched is that story?
I saw 2 seconds of that trailer, and Zendaya, whatever her name is, had the wrong grip on the serve. And I said, get this shitty movie out of my face right now.
It's a good
if you're going
question.
to try to serve with a semi-Western grip and then not even change over to an Eastern or a semi-Western for the forehand, get this crap out of my face right now. By the way, R.I.P. Gene Hackman, one of the greatest one of the greatest basketball roles that I can remember.
Well,
I feel like people here find Hoosiers overrated.
Immensely.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It's how you feel about challenges is how I feel about Hoosiers. Like, that's not how any of that works.
That wouldn't even be in his top 10, I don't think.
No.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Is Hoosiers in Gene Hackman's top 10? Michael's new book, Lucky Loser, is available to pre-order now everywhere you get your books and ebooks on March 11th, and you can get tickets now for his Lucky Loser comedy tour at michaelcosta.com. You mentioned that you wrote the book about how did we get here. So before you came on, I was talking about how the news anchor is dead. And I remember when it happened, actually, when Jon Stewart became America's most trusted newsman, replacing all of the previous network anchors. America said that they wanted their news from a comedian. How did we get here?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one of the things that fascinates me.
That's a good question.
Or Morning Zoo.
Doing this show is great, but I never know what's coming through my headphone.
Well, I wish that hadn't been. I feel like we could have done that better than
No,
we've
that's
done
an
it.
all-time good sounder.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people stop me and say, "You're where I get my news," and I go, we're on Comedy Central, right? You know that we don't uphold or have to be upheld to any journalistic integrity. I think, what's that great movie where the news anchor loses his mind? Network. I think that's a great synopsis. I wish our news channels were publicly funded. They weren't for profit. I think every time I see a lower third on CNN or Fox, I go, they're just doing that so we keep watching. It doesn't really seem like they're trying to inform us. There is a trustworthiness with comedy. There's a trustworthiness with comedians. There's this thought that comedians tell the truth. I always think it's hilarious when comedians get held to a higher standard than a politician or an elected official. But I do think people enjoy that they're coming to see us and we'll make them laugh. Oh, and also I learned that Donald Trump just signed an executive order that you can't swirl vanilla and chocolate ice cream today or whatever it is. So good question. It's a good question. Might not be a simple answer. I'm just trying really hard to not be a slapdick on your guys' show today.
Are you somebody who is trying to laugh to keep from crying at the daily news events that are happening that make America shake and?
Why is my voice still going like that?
It is a really tricky time. I can easily get my mind into. Everyone relax. You're overreacting. There's a checks and balances of this system. American democracy has been in motion for 270 years. This isn't the first egomaniac we've had as president. And I can easily get my mind into this is the beginning of authoritarian rule. Comedians can and will be locked up. Free speech is pretended to be put on a pedestal. But anytime you criticize this guy, you're done. The number one social media platform is in the pocket of the so I can go both ways. I don't know the answer. All I know is comedy is a good way to fight and resist until they shoot us.
Excellent dismount. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Good talking to you. Again, a reminder, the name of the book is Lucky Loser, and it's available to pre-order now, and it'll be available everywhere March 11th. Pleasure talking to you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Was your answer Musetti, though? Was that the final
my answer?
answer?
My answer is Barantini.
Yeah, Teeny's a dude.
And also, in that Netflix documentary, he wins in 5 sets, and he's in the cold tub, and he calls his grandparents, and they're watching live in Italy at like 3 a.m., and it is a tear. He's not just a handsome face. He's also a good guy. I want that to be my dismount.
All right. I preferred your previous one, but you get to choose, sir. Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Amin, I wanted to talk to you about the numbers that came in on Luka and the Lakers versus Dallas. and the fact that 2.5 million viewers, which seems like a small number to me, but it represents a giant number for the NBA in regular season now, even though it's 1 million less than White Lotus did for its second episode.
Okay, these HBO numbers that they put out, all of these are fudged beyond belief.
Make sure to check us out on Max.
Yeah, but they're fudged. On the other side, it's actually more people are watching, and they're just being too modest with those numbers. No, Dan, that number sounds big to me because everyone knew Dallas wasn't healthy and the game wasn't in Dallas. So I think those things dampen what could have been. I mean, if you gave me either of those things, either a full-strength Mavericks team or have them be hurt, but this game happens in Dallas, I think the numbers spike.
It was also a late game, though, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's a
10:10 Eastern.
Yep.
So that's a real good number. The part that I wanted to talk to you about, though, it's a real good number for the time. It doesn't seem like a real good number, but I question all the numbers these days. But the thing that I wanted to use that to discuss is all of the smearing and leaking that the Mavs are now doing privately. And one of the leaks, right, I saw that a lot of people were making fun of this, was the general fear of Luka's physical deterioration because he likes the beer and the hookah too much. Those two things combined. And while I know a lot of people are looking at that and saying to themselves, this is a ridiculous way to smear a professional athlete who is as great as that one is, I got to be honest. If you're someone who likes the beer and hookah a little too much, I don't trust you as much as I would as an athlete either. I'm just saying, I'm not going to say it's a lot less, but if you like the specifics of the beer and the hookah too much, I'm not even talking about liquor, I'm talking about beer, that you love to drink beer and you love to hang out with the hookah, I am also going to have a question about whether to give you the Supermax by 1 degree that I wouldn't have had if you didn't like the hookah and the beer so much.
I mean, you have had my dad around here for 20 years.
That's correct, and I've seen his deterioration. I've seen that he's asking when he comes in this week, why do I look 10 years older than 89-year-old Jane Fonda?
Dan, it's funny, when I saw the infographic saying Mavericks were concerned because Luka likes beer and hookah, I said, you could just replace the word Luka with Amin, and nothing would change. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah.
Do the person who likes beer and hookah too much, do you not just generally, whatever their occupation, do you not say that probably is somebody who's not giving 100% all the time?
No. I say that person is worthy of applause, right? Everyone needs to compensate this person even more richly than he's already being compensated, because it turns out this is what he's doing. He's giving you this excellence on beer and hookah. How do you not pay him? How are you not impressed by his brilliance?
Aren't beer and hookah like the most benign of the vices?
Sure.
Like, of all the things you can smoke, hookah, and of all the things you can drink, beer.
Yeah.
Agreed. I am not disputing that they're benign vices. I'm saying they come with a certain stigma that I attach to. That person doesn't want to work that hard. That is not a person who is type A competitor. I'm willing to use beer and hookah as something, just those specific things, as somebody who might care slightly less about their work than the person who's got a heroin addiction.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I view that as someone who has a massive 100% effort when they're at work and likes to unwind. Yeah. Because if they were someone who wasn't giving 100% effort, who was sloppy in their lives, who wasn't together, they'd have a worse vice. Beer and hookah, at the end of the day, you've given 100% effort that you need to. Now you want to unwind and let loose a little bit, and that's the worst you're doing? To me, that's like the best of the vices.
Okay, again, though, I do not want to turn this into something that makes beer and hookah some sort of terrible affliction. I'm just saying that I could have told you based on looking at his body that he loved beer and hookah. And it's because of something I'm doing with beer and hookah. Like, that's not Luka, that's hookah. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing with you, everyone. Anytime I walk on Lincoln Road and I see somebody sucking from one of those bongs, what just happened? Sucking as a verb caught you off guard?
Oh. Is this better than overeating with Zion? Like, what would you rather have? A star that eats too much or a star that gets after the beer a little bit?
I'm hanging out with the hookah.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Get the stat of the day music for that reference that you just made on Zion at Le Batard Show, because we have a stat of the day that's Zion related. But put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Which is it that you fear the most? Is it the athlete who's eating too much or beer and hookah?
Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day.
Zion Williamson has actually been a completely dominant force while he plays in the NBA. He is the third fastest active player in the NBA to reach 5,000 points in his career, only behind Luka Doncic and LeBron James. And a separate stat from Owen Phillips, he's the most double-teamed player in the entire player tracking era. The gap between him and the next closest person is equal to the gap between the second most double-teamed player and the 100th most double-teamed player.
I mean, that's a quiet bust that's happened in New Orleans, like where you're wondering if the Knicks would even want him. No, I'm just saying I'm saying reputationally.
He doesn't listen to
in
you.
terms of success.
He doesn't want to listen to you.
He was looking at his watch.
Yeah,
Said, why is he talking to me?
You
while
asked,
you were talking?
You asked, why would we give this guy a platform? And he went, oh, you know what? You're right.
You talked. He stopped listening.
Fair.
I checked my watch, Jeremy. I'm sorry.
It was a good stat.
How many watch jokes are you guys going to make?
The watch.
Zion, his reputation is in total tatters.
It's crazy.
So
it's shocking.
So you're giving a stat of the day that is shocking because it's factual in nature, but in terms of if I say word association in the league to bust right now, it's either him or Joel Embiid that's going to come up because of what the expectations are for these people, because you know how physically dominant they can be.
That's the problem. That's what makes them a dilemma, because the basketball is unquestioned. There are so many guys, they get hurt or they don't achieve, and we're like, yeah, okay, you didn't end up being what we thought you would be. And so it's easier to cut ties. Think of Markelle Fultz. It was easy to basically give up on Markelle Fultz. It was easy to give up on Anthony Bennett. It's easy to give up on Andrew Wiggins. It's hard as hell to give up on Joel Embiid and Zion Williamson, because when they do play, they are legitimately historic. Some of the greatest basketball ever, right? What Jeremy just talked about. For him to be the most double-teamed person, already shocking.
Is that being in the post? That has to be misleading. Is it because he doesn't dribble the ball up? That as soon as the ball's thrown down to him, that's when he gets doubled?
If you throw the ball to Zion Williamson in the post, there are no other options for you as a defense. You must send help. It cannot be guarded one-on-one.
It is harder, Chris, for instance, Curry. It's hard to double team him because he's moving off ball so much. They do try to trap him, but then how often do those instances happen? Number one. Number two, I suspect the other part of this is Zion is not as great a passer as, say, Jokic or LeBron. So the penalty for double teaming him as a defense is much lower than it would be to double team Jokic, for instance. So yeah, there is some stuff there. But still, for him to be number one and for the gap between 1 and 2 to be 2 and 100, it speaks to this guy's seriously something that teams fear, right? But he's not out there. The other stat you gave is he is the fastest to 5,000. In terms of games played, sure.
Right.
If we count days, no way.
What was that noise?
That wasn't me. Who did that?
It was me.
It's been an active day.
Oh,
I've
man.
caught 3 of them.
I was like, what's happening to my microphone? I thought it was me.
An alligator in studio?
The gurgles inside of Dan's tummy have really been picked up by Mike Sinnet.
Yeah, it's coffee on an empty stomach is what's happened there. Can you guys tell me when you think, because Ben Simmons is somebody that I forgot there, because that's probably the top of the list on somebody who's got the reputation of being a bust.
He got to a max deal, but when you consider who was drafted after him, Aiton, I think you can lump him in that class too.
I wanted to ask you guys, were you guys aware, put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. Did you know Max Scherzer was a Blue Jay at Le Batard Show? The reason I asked the question is because the quote that he just had, which was amazing, it's just a great quote. It's like part Blade Runner and part something you'd expect to hear in the year 2050. Max Scherzer said, quote, "Can we just be judged by humans?" Because he doesn't like this electronic robot umpire thing like a lot of the people don't. Can we just be judged by humans? I saw that football, we haven't talked about this today, football is now going to electronics. They're going to use the chains, but the chains are going to be a backup. The main technology that they're going to use to officiate is not going to be human. Do you guys want to lament the idea of can we just be judged by humans? The longing to be judged more imperfectly than perfectly.
Hot take, the chains have always been the backup. The referees just spot the ball, and whenever they're not sure, they bring out the chains.
Okay, but the chains are how it is that we're used to doing the finality of the measurement, and they basically just changed the rules because Josh Allen lost.
So we're off the chains now?
Give me the sound of the Major League Baseball umpire who is also a bit bothered by the idea that the electronics are coming.
I love this. This is in minor league baseball. They are doing, you can challenge balls and strikes. So there's a pitch that's challenged, and then the call is told to be right or wrong, and the umpire announces that call.
Good breaking ball, just misses. Brett Sullivan get a challenge.
Ball call.
Brett has been expert at the ABS system. Ooh.
The call is surprisingly correct.
So a couple weeks in, and we already have sarcastic umpires taking victory laps.
I want my NBA refs to do that. I want them to give us some editorializing.
And looking right into the camera the way that they do after the challenge calls when they have to explain, just, I was right.
Billy Kennedy, who was reffing the game last night, he's a guy that delivers.
He's so funny.
He does a great job of delivery. Billy, I'm looking at you right now. I need you to start doing this. Be more sarcastic when you announce whether the call is upheld or overturned.
Surprisingly, I was right.
Yeah.
I am still, I know we complain about officiating all the time, but I'm stunned at how accurate baseball umpires actually are when I see that tiny box and how precise that tiny box is and how often they get the call right when you're an inch outside of the strike zone. I know we noticed the mistakes, but the humans on at least plate umpiring, I have found outside of Angel Hernandez, most of them do it correctly.
It's pretty amazing considering you'll still have like a Hall of Famer in Giancarlo Stanton swinging at a pitch that's like 2 feet outside because he can't recognize that it's a slider.
And he guesses.
And yet these umpires are constantly able to, right out of a pitcher's hand, be able to know where the break is going to go, not be fooled often by which pitch is coming in so that they can properly tell by inches whether or not a ball is just on the black or not. It's as impressive as some things that actually happen on the field.
And then you miss one call, and I'm like, oh, come on, Blue! Get your head out of your ass!
Are any of these umpires former players? They should be awesome hitters, right? If they can see it that well.
You would think so. Just like a catcher, though, right? Like catchers, you would think would be the best hitters in baseball, but the answer is no.
But the answer to his question is also no. There aren't a lot of major league players that are umpiring. I don't know that there are any.
Because now I'm thinking about it, imagine Barry Bonds as a plate umpire. He'd see it all. He'd be like, oh, that was a strike. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was like, go ahead, do the replay. Waste your call.
I don't.
Why would you become an ump, though, if you made like $10 million playing baseball?
Guys, I think the hard part is hitting the ball, though.
Yeah.
Just watching it come in, probably a little easier.
Yeah.
It would be funny to see an umpire's knees buckle on a curveball, though. Just like, oh, shit, thought it was a fastball.
Plate discipline is important, though, but there is that other part of having to make the contact. Yes.
And they hit the small object with a very narrow object.
A lot of major league players from the earlier part of the 1900s then became umpires. I'm looking at a list here of about probably 20, 25 guys, and the majority of them, it was that they were umpires from 1925 to 1947 after playing in the early 20th century.
Just think of the Barry Bonds' ego deciding that what he's going to do with his life after his career is travel around the country and be calling balls and
The idea
strikes.
of Bonds judge other hitters.